Hello, folks. We're just waiting for Spatialists to join us. I'll be right with you. Let me know if you're here in the chat. If you have some cardboard or headset with you, go ahead and go to spatial-esk.com. We'll get started in just a second. Good evening. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Hang on a second.
Yeah, getting the tail on for
Shut that down for a second. How's it going?
pretty good. Yeah, like just a lot in one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No
I'm
worries.
pretty
No
good.
worries.
I'm
Um,
here. My got a few bits. So yeah.
yeah, I was enjoying checking out your website with my Google Cardboard.
Cool.
Okay, so I didn't get started because I the fear of being
Yeah, no,
a
no,
big
that's
head
cool.
alone.
Um,
um, so welcome back, everyone, for the second Watch Me Work event. And today we are going to experience the amazing multi-plane universes that SPATIAL-ESK makes in VR. Um, I wanted to do a little housekeeping and just tell folks, like, thank you so much for all your support and all your feedback and all your interest. We have already reached our fundraising goal, or we're getting there. Keep watching, keep sharing the video in the next week or so. After that, we're going to take them down. But yeah, we hope to continue to do more events like this from January to June, get us through the long winter and watch people do amazing things with footage and images and sounds in Creative Commons, and as well as open source software and the likes. Yeah, I was thinking today it's a good little pairing, our two events that we have here, not only the AR and the VR pieces, but the kind of the two sides of Creative Commons community and the things that they're trying to do. Last week we talked about, playing, remixing with stuff that's licensed, as well as like contributing stuff to Creative Commons, and to allow people to um, remix and add on to and contribute to the visual record of human experience. And we talked a bit about we explored the image as a portal through image-based augmented reality into new experiences with digital content. And today we're kind of looking at the portal as image, we'll be going in very soon. But I just wanted to talk about open source and a little bit what that means for folks. Anybody who's not familiar, I mean, you've probably heard the term, but essentially it's just when someone creates a piece of technology or a piece of develops a piece of research or a resource and says, you can remix this, you can rebuild this, you can use the parts and do what you will with it. And yeah, it's an important part of a functioning
yeah, yeah, it's a big
internet.
part of how I work too. Like some of the open source software you're gonna see today, just it's just kind of just accessible and just allows you to get stuck in. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and you get to see the recipe. Like, even if it's, like Android is open source and iOS is
yeah,
closed. That doesn't really help me since I don't know, how to build a phone, but but at least the recipe is knowable. Someone could
yeah,
explain it to me if I were to pick up and try to engineer and tinker with these things. Yeah, and obviously some things are more important for the public good, in terms of, like, even that movie I was mentioning, that documentary I was mentioning last week about Remix, the manifesto that's about Creative Commons. The guy that it follows, he's like a DJ, and he mixes all kinds of little pieces, tiny little pieces of big pop songs that are
yeah,
very protected by copyright, and he's worried about getting sued at the time. But that's what he's doing by night, but by day he's working in a biochemical research lab, um,
right,
and is experiencing the same problems, right? He's supposed to present these new ideas, but
yeah,
all of these little pieces that he has to put together to cure cancer, so to speak, are patented or are owned by corporations. And and stop for the creative process of like building on all of those things.
Cool.
Turn your input volume up. Somebody's saying they'd like to hear you better. Can you turn it up?
All right. Am I coming through loud and clear?
I can hear you fine.
All right.
Okay, amazing. So let's get into it. Do you want to share your screen?
Yep.
Is it just by doing that? Okay.
Cool. So I'm Spatial-ESK, and I'd consider myself a panoramic virtual reality artist. And a lot of what I do is kind of based on like panoramic imagery within art. And so this is kind of, I think, the most famous, well-known equirectangular image, which is really the unfolding of the panorama is the atlas. So it's kind of like rolling out the sphere into kind of a flat kind of 2D space, and then you're able to then navigate that. So that can work either looking at an object like the world, which is kind of spherical, or imagining that you're within a point and you have the full 360 view to look around you. So kind of MC Escher's kind of optical illusion. That's kind of what I think of when I just kind of artistically how the panorama can be just manipulated in artwork using different technologies. And so kind of this image over here kind of shows how the panorama is folded out, but then can also create this distortion that gives you the sense that you're within the space. This is kind of the just the bread and butter of kind of creating something that it kind of tricks your mind into feeling like you're actually there. And I think it's combined with like the physics of it, like the movement and just kind of all of these different aspects together. So like Google Cardboard and just other VR headsets are now coming in. But obviously these guys too, who are trying to fill our eyes with lots of data. But I think the reason why I'm excited about this is because there are ways that anyone can get involved and actually create, metaversal experiences. Because my origin and interest is all in street art, and so I think just a way that you can kind of layer on your artwork or experience in the real world and the virtual world is something that I think is really quite special. So if you feel like you've never used one of these before, you probably have if you've dropped down onto Street View in Google. This is probably, in my opinion, the most common used panoramic system that we all kind of interact with. So the system that this is based on is it's kind of everything that's been described before. It's a series of panoramic experiences that are interlocked to give you the sensation that you're moving from position to position within like real world space.
Right. Together pictures they took from those vans.
Yeah. And so that's the interesting thing. Like you can use you can get 360 cameras. Today I won't be going into too much of the hardware. It'll be more on like the process and the artwork, but there's tons on the market. Like I know at the moment the biggest application I've seen is in real estate or like GoPros and like different experiences and stuff, but and Google. But then I'm going to just show you ways that you can kind of actually create virtual spaces and actually instead of just being the recipient of these, kind of like putting out your own ideas out there and trying to see what kind of things we can do with this. So this is the Remix exhibition with McMaster's Museum of Arts, with the NEAR Center, and also Stilo Star curating. There were so many amazing artists involved in that project, and this was a panorama that I created using a combination of different tools that I'm gonna like kind of get into. So we had the idea of trying to exhibit a series of artists in this Afrofuturist exhibition, but it was the middle of COVID, and there was just no way to kind of get into a physical space to exhibit. So I worked with several incredible artists to create, these custom virtual spaces. So what you can see on the right is the panorama that was created, and it just kind of meant that you could go from a central space to different spaces and experience like a virtual exhibition. So this was kind of
just by clicking there, you could kind of change rooms.
Yeah, that's right. And so these kind of hotspots are kind of the main way in which a lot of these are navigated. And so we just played around adding like everything from the textures, the colors, the hex color codes were all curated. The text, the imagery, everything's kind of been kind of pulled together to kind of just create, I don't know, just an experience that it's not just a compromise to say, because we're doing this all online, we miss out on the physical space. Actually, if we're doing virtual spaces, then they can actually be a new opportunities, new kinds of spaces that we can enjoy. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, pull the good from the bad in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're curious about kind of like where this begins, the software that I use to kind of make the space it's SketchUp Make. I'm gonna put these links on my site, spatial-esk.com, later on, so you can kind of find those out. But yeah, if you just SketchUp makes a great free tool, and you can just download several versions of that to work with. So this is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of the space, and it's kind of designed to be an intuitive kind of 3D environment space that you can kind of work in. And like there's so much kind of info about SketchUp out there. So like you can do so much with it, and there's loads of plugins and everything. But basically there's a kind of a piece that I had in mind that I'm quite interested in kind of making. So I've got this image as a PNG here, and I just kind of want to kind of put this within a space and kind of like create a panoramic experience with that. So first thing I'm going to probably do here, I'm just going to kind of get my space going.
And that's just a PNG. It doesn't have to be a 3D image.
No, so because I work a lot with collage, right? So I like the kind of using a 2D kind of image within a space. So I'm kind of just, so the good thing with this program is you can kind of like just mess around and just.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of based on a lot of like pushing and pulling. So I'm just gonna like just cut a few things out. So as you saw in the other example, I was kind of creating these kind of arched openings, and so I'm gonna try and get something similar here. I like using a lot of bold colors in the work that I do. So.
Oh wow, this is really.
So it's the great thing about, like, I have a pro version here, but the free version you can pretty much do everything that you can kind of see here. Let's get something. There we go. So the thing I like to think about in the space is I like to position myself kind of within the space and just kind of think about what it's, what experiences am I trying to invoke, what kind of like sense am I trying to create. And so I like to combine like the physical, elements like floors, walls, and roofs with kind of collaged elements. So I'm just gonna import.
Yeah, the first thing you did was make a little architectural space within the space.
Yeah. Second.
And how long have you been working in this?
So this one, I'd say that I've been working with this for probably like quite a few years now. Probably over 10 or so years. Like this has gone through quite a lot of like, iterations as a piece of software, but there's a great community online that's just that just develops ideas for it and just so this is literally my 2D image. I can just kind of copy this over, or
can you bring that into the space as well if you're like kind of walking?
yes, yeah, that can be brought in. Sometimes it's some images are associated with a surface. So what I can probably do here is just kind of create a different surface and just try and associate it with that one. So
right, that's because it's got no information on the other side.
yeah, it likes to kind of see, kind of the way the program works. It's a series of kind of 2D planes, but it's very kind of like flexible in how you can use it. So I know you can kind of push and pull things and just kind of create different, just different layers of information. So I'm just gonna, there we go.
I love this. What are these little guys doing in this futuristic den of?
So in a way, like as you can tell, like my process has just generally been just playing around with the spaces as I go. I don't like having too firm an idea of kind of what that will look like at the end. I like to kind of just test the ideas and just kind of play with them, and then also just find a perspective that I want to kind of get the kind of the experience to be about. So you kind of position your camera with the positioning camera tool, which can be anywhere, like the corner of the room or more central. And so I think I like this view kind of here. The fact that this is a bit closer to me here.
And what made you? How did you find the image, or what drew you? Did you think?
So to get these images, I searched for these on using the Creative Commons like a search tool on Google.
Oh, amazing!
So if I just say Fox and go on, say.
Oh, in images, right? Like
yeah. So
use their
yeah, exactly. So under the tools here, kind of following on from usage rights, Creative Commons licenses, and was a different one further down that I came across. But yeah, that's the great thing about this tool. I quite like that you can kind of get straight in there and just get the images that are free for use. And that the same was for the other image here as well. But while we're on there, I think I'm going to add some other features. So I'm going to add like a window. So I'm just going to go window PNG.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm going to try and get a window with view.
Portals within portals now.
Yeah, yeah. So I quite like this one here actually. Let's go for this.
I like this this mix of this very like quaint, kind of cutesy
Yeah,
imagery in these very kind of pixelated industrial, like, you know, pared down, like minimalist architectural pieces.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think like kind of combining the realistic with, and you know, the just the abstract and everything's quite a nice way to I don't know, just to create something just kind of unique to your own experience. And that's kind of what I like about collage as well, is that you can kind of just combine different aspects together, and then just end up with something completely unique. There we go. So while that's downloading now, I'm just going to continue to experiment. So I think I'm going to make the space a little bit bigger.
And what kind of files can you bring in here? Like,
so when you import, you can bring in anything from like JPEGs, PNGs, and now apparently PSDs can come in. I didn't even that's a new one to me. But yeah, bitmaps, and then several other 3D files. So if you did like a 3D scan, like you could bring some of that information in. Depending on if you've converted it. So 3ds, if you converted it into that. I know there's like a lot of STL files for like 3D printers and things, but with a lot of converters now, you can bring a lot of that information in. Another pretty cool feature is that you can bring in sort of 3D, they have what's called a 3D warehouse, where you can find various items that you can kind of bring into the space. So I'm going to just try and look for
kind of like in Unity, they have like a search engine. They have a lot of good stuff there. You're saying the community is really great.
Yeah, a really great community. There's kind of like create different aspects of models and things that you can kind of pull in, and so I'm just going to pop this gate in here. Let's see. Some of them can be quite heavy, so it's
interesting.
So let me try and get this gate here. Let's get this guy. So I like a lot of like surreal imagery within the work. So I'm just gonna.
And how do you know what the scale is of this?
So I kind of do it by eye a lot of the time. Like it is such that you can use real world measurements if you do wish to have it like to a certain scale.
Right.
But I kind of at the moment I've started to just position and sketch because I like playing around with scale quite a lot with the work. I like kind of creating just a sense of scale that's relating to what I'm trying to communicate. Because for example, you know, if I do want to make this image about, you know, about power and and about, you know, power and oppression, I may want to kind of make, you know, invert the idea of predator and prey and just kind of play with scale to
nice
kind of convey that image.
Yeah, I felt safer as soon as you put that fence around that little rabbit, but now it's
yeah, just kind of completely. So basically, I've got kind of an image that I feel is kind of communicating some of the ideas for the space that I want. I'm just gonna, because I'm gonna show you what this works like for a 360, I'm just gonna put some things around just so that we can identify that. So we have a wall here, we have an opening, the arch on the right, and at the back, I'm just gonna put some text, I think. So I'm just gonna. Okay, so since this piece is all about power, I'm just gonna go here, pop that in there. I think I'm gonna color these.
Nice. It's very usable. I mean, you've been using it for a long time, obviously. So you're making it look easy, but
It's a lot of yeah, a lot of.
I want to just do like an empty space with just words.
There we go.
Just words.
So again, like a lot of our work has a kind of political message to it. So there we go. So I'm gonna just kind of. So there are a variety of different programs, but then I think this is probably in terms of like entry level, and just I feel like anyone can kind of get in, kind of involved in this particular one, and it's a good starting point. You can get into others, you know, Blender, Unity, a few other good 3D programs, 3ds Max, but this is a great one to start to convey those ideas. So I'm just going to position myself back a little bit more so I can see the words. So kind of, all right.
You're choosing a point of.
What was that?
Are you choosing a point of view? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, just trying to get like a good kind of field of view, just to get the correct kind of perspective. So
and how do you do that? You pick a different spot and then kind of do a 360 and then pick a different spot and.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm kind of rolling my mouse forward and just kind of finding a spot. There we go. This is kind of getting a good. There we go. So what I'm just gonna do now is just get like a sky dome, just so I think I've got. So you can create your own sky domes basically by just taking a 360 camera and just capturing space, or so this is kind of one thing.
Your own stuff in your own videos and photographs as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really big part. So let me just get one. Some are collage, some are, there we go. Get this here. There we go.
Paper.
There we are. So
I love it. Is that a photograph of a paper of a magazine?
yes, yeah, that's right. So you could scan. I like to kind of take scans and stuff and bring those in.
Oh, I
and
love
so it creates this kind of collage versus kind of digital. I think one thing I really like is, you know, there's an opportunity to have this, you know, analog aesthetics in how the space is created that I think can be lost when, you know, we rely just purely on digital like it's kind of, whether it's, you know, finding photographs and it's how we remix and reuse what we already have. That's kind of informed how I work quite a lot.
and how can you reference the real world if
exactly.
you don't have that, you know what I mean? If there's nothing recognizable.
Yeah, that's right. So let me try and get the actual panorama exported just as a quick test. So what I think the best, there's a free plugin that you can use to export the kind of panorama within this modeling program.
Mm.
And so it's a free download, which is a companion to the SketchUp. And there's a great community of like people who create these plugins to allow kind of this modeling software to be used in different ways. So this particular one allows you to combine the images into a 360 kind of view. So I'm just going to show you kind of what that kind of looks like.
And how do you understand these plugins? Do they have like a little description kind of thing of what they do, or
just searching on online communities, because that's kind of just generally how, yeah, they'll just kind of say, hey, are you looking to do this? A developer out, all around the world, they can be from anywhere, just developed something to kind of answer that problem. So this was a space that I created kind of using those techniques for the Remix exhibition. This is a piece called The Black House, and it's a kind of reinterpretation of the White House with kind of imagery of protests mixed with kind of pop culture. There's a scene from The Breakfast Club. There's the Black Panthers. There's 1950s picnics going on. It's on the lawn of the White House. There's a Ashanti chief, and so there's quite a few things that I layered with the collage, and this was done in such a way that each of these kind of layers were been cut out within the space to create that dynamic effect. And just kind of creating that depth that we were talking about, just to give it that sense.
Yeah, and the way that collage uses layers, but on like a 3-dimensional. I love the way you were turning that, and like the lines of the design were completely changing, like.
And some material, we call it chitenge in Zambia, like from my homeland, and just like different little details that you can just kind of integrate within the 3-dimensional space. I'm taking that collage idea and just applying it in a 3-dimensional kind of approach.
I love it.
So let me try and export the example that we were looking at before, the power piece. So this is the tool cubic panel out.
That's what you're exporting it as? A cubic panel? That's what it's called?
That's the plugin. It'll export JPEGs, but that's kind of the plugin to get these exported. So let's get that going. And while that's happening, we can have a chat.
Does that ever make your computer angry?
A little bit. Like, it's kind of, sometimes it puts it in a grump, and other times it works. So that's good. Here we go. So how these generally work, you saw that kind of these images are kind of stretched out, like we're talking about. So the question is kind of how we kind of put them together. And so another amazing online developer guy that just did this completely for free, 360 Toolkit, which is this conversion online program to convert your map like a box into this 3D map. And so in order to do this, you have to select your files. So here, these are the exported images over here. So you just have to name them in such a way that you have front, right, back, left, up, and down.
Right.
Because that's so this is my front. So I'm just gonna call this F.
Okay, so you want to label it before you put it in there.
Yeah, or else it'll stitch it in a really funny way, which can be really interesting. But unless you intend it, so this is on the right.
Yeah, you were saying that the other day that you like to play with it, just like having the ceiling on the floor and.
Yeah. call this one left. Yeah. And then looking up to the sky is up. Sometimes when the piece is much more complex, it can be a bit tricky, and it'll take a bit of trial and error to get the correct kind of associated files. So, and this will be down. So select these, pop them in. So it needs an aspect ratio, cube map. Okay, let's try this again. So I have to select this one at the end. Okay. 6 images. I had this one before, but you'd have to have an image that's already arranged in that way. So let's try this again. Get these all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's not forget my one at the top. There we go. So what this will now do is it'll recognize which one's back, which one's down, front, left, right, and up. If you use this, do buy him a coffee.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I got a coffee before, so. And if you just wait a second and find it download, you'll get something that kind of looks like this.
Dang, that is very interesting.
So I think these are beautiful images because it's like we were talking about, like pulling it apart and kind of getting that view. So these are kind of this is the basic language that you're kind of communicating to your API or your viewer to just navigate this. And with a bit of clever maths, you're able to navigate this as a space. So
clever masks, is that what you said, or clever masks?
Maths, like yeah, clever maths. So the best way, this is kind of really quick fire, to then turn that into something you can look at online, you need like an online viewer. So this is just a big shout out to all these amazing people that have created these free things. So Panelum is made by someone from MIT that just kind of created a free version for people to use panoramas on the web. So this is an example of one of these that was created, and there's a great community. Like I've been in touch with the developer and just kind of suggested things. Matthew Petrov's a guy, and just developing this kind of version after version to just allow just new features and new ways of using it. So it's quite a lightweight and simple kind of a panoramic viewer, but it's the one that I used in developing like the remix with a lot of additional CSS and JavaScript coding. But at the basic level, it can allow you to start to kind of create that panorama.
So what we're just looking at there, was that made up of 2-dimensional images? No.
Yeah, that's right.
What?
Yeah. So everything that you see, it's kind of, this is what blows my mind about it, because you're looking at something that this is an equivalent of like the image that was just produced, right? So where did I put that image?
Well, the map is a great example too, because there's so many projections. There's so many different maps, right? And there's so many arguments about
it's peeling the orange, and so basically any reader software will tell your viewer that basically as you drag your mouse with some clever physics, it'll curve it in such a way that it's like you're looking around, and it stitches this. It's kind of like, you can probably print this out and create like a circle and your own like diorama of this this space.
Right.
So I'm just gonna go to some of these examples here. So this is kind of like the simple example using an iframe and some of the API, which basically integrates the image that you've just created within that panorama.
Right.
So I'm just going to use Imager.
This is absolutely fascinating. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they want to ask? Anything they want to share about what they imagine doing with these tools? Because is the learning curve pretty steep, or?
I think all the different bits together, like so the API side of things, and working with that view as one side. So I kind of worked from like the modeling and the collage to using the plugins to, there's just lots of pieces together, and until you kind of join them, it can be quite steep. But I think what I'm really passionate about is like collaborating with artists and kind of making it accessible. Like I think like at the moment I use a lot of like advanced tools that like are somewhat more complex in the process than this, but the basics are there that can be used. So I'm just dropping in the image that is just created.
You're putting this in what's this? Imager?
Imager.
Oh, Imager.
So it kind of allows you to link in your panoramic images without requiring a lot of server space. So it's hosting your image on a different site,
Right.
which can be really helpful. So I'm just gonna, if you copy your Imager link, for example, here, I'll come back to this later. But it just, this is where I kind of generally would host my images. So the remix images are here for the different spaces that were created.
And is that costly, like either here or otherwise? Like if you're the hosting part of it, because so often people don't get that it's like, because it's digital, they're just like, yeah, it's there forever. Because somebody told me my Facebook picture was going to be there forever when I was young as a morning, and it's like, no, there's somebody's got to maintain it or it's not there forever.
Yeah. So this was the exhibition is now kind of closed at the McMaster's Museum of Arts. So this is like a personal archive with my direct links. So that means I'm in control to then take those down, and then that's kind of then it's done and finished. So it allows you to have control of some of the images because you're sharing a link instead of like an image file. And so it's in that sense. I know it's harder you can't really download the file from the viewer if that makes sense, like you would on Google or something, because it's kind of integrated in such a way that you're just experiencing the 360 instead of like the raw image that it came from.
But if you sent me this link to my phone, I could view it in 360.
Only with the viewer. So let me show you the simple example. So this is what they've called it. They've called it a simple. I didn't think this was simple at first, but I got that.
Simple example, it's a bunch of code. Yeah, that's like
yeah. So I'm going to copy this API, which just basically allows you to have this viewer on your web page or posted wherever. And I'm going to go on to use the HTML try tool, which is a great kind of tool to just test things out. Okay, so this is the example they had. I dropped their code in. It's like, okay, they're not lying. It works. So now I'm gonna, the really simple thing, I'm gonna change the image to be my source image. So I'm just gonna copy my image link.
I didn't know a link could be code. So you fetch this in. It's a URL.
Let's try that again. I think I deleted something. Okay, cannot be accessed. let's see. I'll copy the direct link instead. This seems promising. Wait a second, it's a different link. It's the one I was looking at here. This is the one I want to do. So
right.
Copy this one. There we go. And
Cool.
there we have, there we go. So the piece kind of like there within the space. And now, so this is kind of like, this would be considered like my first kind of sketch,
Right.
before kind of like getting into it. And because the example with the remix exhibition, it had, how many spaces in total? Probably like 12 different panoramic spaces, each with hotspots connecting them in different ways. So basically let's go here, the code in the examples kind of just gets like more complex as you kind of go through each example. And then so you kind of take those ingredients and just kind of start to apply and kind of change them as you go. So let me just try and add a title.
But it's all the same process, even if when it gets much more complex.
Yes, the general, there was a lot of trial and error in this, because I'd often like just lose, miss a comma, and then just like everything disappears and it's all gone, and it's it's just kind of it. I think the final code for the remix was quite long, and I ended up it worked quite well with one of their marketing and just kind of media people, Elise, and so we kind of worked together to make it kind of work with the web server and everything. So depending on the website that's hosting, you kind of have to adjust it to suit. So
and do you ever do stuff that's in an app, or is it always exportable in this nice accessible way where you can kind of access it from a website?
At the moment, I am toying with this is a spoiler alert, but developing. So I've got like EXEs, and basically you can download them and view them within VR on your Apple device or your Android. So like they can be downloaded and used offline. So those I'm kind of developing that for more like just kind of exhibition experiences and things, but at least there's some control to kind of how it's shared, because it's a piece of software. So this is kind of the web version. So interesting. This is like an example of the way in which you change one thing and it disappears. So we have that. I think I'm gonna.
What are you trying to change?
I'm trying to add a title. So we have type author. So I'm gonna do that here. So generally, there's a really good GitHub page for Panellum, which I used a lot just to kind of like identify lots of troubleshooting. But what I can do in the last kind of couple minutes is just show the breakdown of how these pieces were put together in that first kind of the big tour that I was showing you. So
wonderful, yay! Good.
Let's have a look.
Anybody have any questions? Feel free to share. I definitely invite you to spend some time on your device with any kind of viewer, or even without a viewer, for the mobile experience of SPATIAL-ESK's amazing website. Yeah, it's an experience in itself.
So yeah, the website is it's a labor of love. So I think I might just show that actually, unless if it's been on screen yet. So
it's been great, loving all the resources shared. Yes, so many amazing. It's amazing the things that people are doing out there, and I can't even imagine how long that would take, let alone to do that. And then
so yeah, this is like another level where it's kind of it's combined various because sometimes you have to eventually pay some money for these things that are being created because they're great resources, and a number of them you start to add them to your repertoire, and like this one, I'll see if you can hear the audio. There we go. Where's my website? There we go. So this is like kind of like, yeah, the idea is kind of like, instead of having websites that are two-dimensional, like I'm kind of like taking that step into creating like that virtual experience of the space. And so everything from like homepage to links, I have them as like objects within space.
I love that.
So if you do, yeah, so that's kind of, I like the idea of it kind of being the internet being this tube of data. I'm just gonna turn down the volume. Yeah. Yeah, just like the kind of the idea of the internet being this kind of spatial, having a spatial dimension to it, where like different objects have like different meaning, and yeah, you can just kind of access different different elements of the site. I think eventually there's going to be like, I think like I changed my house, like I think the website's always going to be changing and adapting, and there'll always be different Easter eggs and just narratives. Like you can just find yourself somewhere complete, like one of the spaces I create, I'll kind of keep hiding them within the website. So it'll be a showcase of the work that I'm collaborating with various creatives. So I've collaborated with like Kay the Chosen, a hip hop artist in Toronto, and kind of doing like a a virtual kind of music performance of what that would look like, and then also just yeah, just that collaboration I think is a great process, because we kind of push the boat out, and it's from the grassroots. I know, yeah, Silicon Valley is having a big push in the virtual space, but I think artists, creatives, communities, yeah, I think that's where a lot of the the real experimenting can happen, and again, it allows you to represent yourself in the space, which is something that should happen physically and virtually. Like you should be able to be represented. So that's
absolutely
a preview into the process. Kind of like how I kind of began in that, like some of the early programs that I used to use, and kind of like where things are kind of now at the moment. So
I love it. Yeah, no, I love that the point about this. Yeah, artists are always, as Marshall McLuhan said, we're the beacon. We're like we predict things because we're playing around in that, asking big useless questions, and exploring with materials, and not yeah, and not driven by market forces or rebrands, and all of that. But yeah, the metaverse is definitely having a moment. But it's good that people can get a chance to see that there's all kinds of, it's a movable feast, and the Zuckerberg
Definitely.
own it all. That's for sure.
And it'll make it much more of an interesting space when there's creation as well as like experience. I'll try to move away from just consuming the virtual space to actually having agency and actually influencing it. So I think that's yeah, if anyone's interested in that, like just get in touch and we can have a chat. But I think that's kind of where a lot of the process is inspired by.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Cool.
Thanks so much for showing that. I wanted, did you paint those little sparkles, or like how do you get that extra depth?
So that's a combination of like so collage and like it's basically you can paint your textures within on a virtual surface, but then I like to kind of sculpt the surfaces. So in the example I had, it was just like a box, but really like a lot of the things I sculpt are very kind of complex, the shapes and the forms, and so you end up with that combination, Photoshop for painting, and then you apply some of the painting textures onto a physical surface. You cut out things in collage, you scan them on a computer, you put them in on the, it's kind of those
back into the analog, back into the keep putting it through, that intermediate, like that, and see what comes out the other side, like the fly. Collage, mixed reality,
and I know you love that kind of thing. I remember, even last week, seeing just your process in, finding something interesting in the street and then reimagining that by augmenting it, in Artivise and adding the different layers. So I just think it just makes for a much more interesting, technical and virtual experience, whether that's AR or VR.
Yeah, and it makes it more reflective. It provides us opportunities to like recontextualize or like context shift like narratives or cultural representations, and see like if this headline were a poem or if this sculpture were our experience, right? Like what would be the same and what would be different with this like same meaning in this other form,
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Thank you so much. I'm gonna tell everybody again. I'm gonna say, reach out to us. Let us know if you know someone who wants to sponsor more events like this. If you want to present, if you know somebody who's working with footage in the Creative Commons open source tech and tools. Anything at all, reach out. In the meantime, we'll take a breather in December and regroup and contact some folks that we're excited about hopefully coming and presenting. We'll do some sponsorship stuff. If you want to check out my podcast in the meantime, it's on YouTube, We Make Media, and other podcast places. That's if you like long conversations with artists. I got you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to just chatting for hours and just like meeting all these amazing artists. So
most definitely. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you in the new year.
All right, see you all soon.
Take care.